Happy hump day. Ladies and gentlemen, what's going on? It's December the 8th. It's about, it's 10 p.m. I apologize for all my listeners and followers that have been, tuning in, and they're like, where the fuck is Sonny? Where's that episode? He's supposed to do 9 episodes in the next, 3 weeks. And that's the plan. So I do apologize. I've been a little MIA. I had to take, I launched a new venture, Matsology, this week. So I've been a little tied up with that. And of course, for those people that don't know, this is a passion hobby of mine. And so I've been a little caught up with work, year end and whatnot, but here I am. So let's get back to it. Let's get back into the groove of things. I'm excited for the next couple of weeks. We got about 9 episodes, including this one that's going to be dropping, trying to hit number 50 by the end of the year. And, it's on that note, I think to start things off right away, like 2020 has been one fucking roller coaster. It's been insane to see this podcast grow from where it was 1 year ago. And for the people that are following me on Instagram and following me at this platform, big shout out to all you guys. You guys have been supporting me since day one. Spotify, of course, you guys know this week, everyone's kind of been doing the whole, sharing on their story, what they've been listening to, their top 5 artists, et cetera, et cetera. And to be honest, I don't really know if anybody really cares what you're listening to, but it's cool kind of to see how Spotify is able to capture that data, and how you're able to see, I don't know about you guys, but for me, for example, I was able, like, my change and my transition in the type of music I've been listening to, a couple of years ago to what I'm listening to today. Forever a hip hop head. But regardless, this podcast, It's Always Sunny in the Six, has been heard in 16 different countries. I can only name 3 or 4 countries from the top of my head that I know that I have active listeners. So I don't know who you guys are out there, but thanks for the support. We've hit about 10,000 streams across all the platforms in the span of about the 42 episodes, 41 episodes, let's say. So anyway, it's been great. And I think that, I look back at some of my older episodes and, I cringe. They say that if you don't look back at your past performance or past things that you've done or accomplished, whether it's maybe pictures, whether it's maybe essays, whether it's maybe things you wrote, maybe the captions. Like, for example, on Facebook, I don't know if you guys get this, but I, every once in a while I get an update from Facebook saying on this date 12 years ago, and there's like literally a caption or a Facebook message, all caps, saying, oh, fuck York sucks, or all-nighter, and then 10 exclamation marks, and you're thinking, what the hell was I thinking 10 years ago? But that's what it is. I think growth is exactly that. You're supposed to be doing things that are different, things that make you evolve, so that when you look back at where you were once upon a time, you cringe. So anyways, going back to that, I heard some of my last episodes in the beginning of the year. When I first started this podcast series, it's been 1 year since I started this idea of starting a podcast, and It's Always Sunny in the Six has been a journey. And so anyways, thank you everybody for your support. It's been awesome, and I am excited, really excited for the level of guests that I have coming in January. You know who you guys are. Super excited to bring a lot of wealth onto this podcast from so many different types of experts. I'm not going to ruin any surprises, so stay tuned. But for the next 9 episodes, you're going to be joined by myself and also a number of different guests, friends within my circle, to kind of entertain ourselves, banter, look back in the year and kind of see how we've grown. And the whole story and the whole motive of this is also for you guys to reflect and look back in your own lives and see that 2020 is definitely a year that we won't forget. On that note, guys, I think showing support and showing love to friends, to people in your network that are grinding, it's important. I think it's important to kind of support the people in your network, because in today's day and age, in the world that we're living in today, Toronto, for example, we're notorious for being screw-face capital. But a lot of that can change, and a lot of that can change starting with your attitude. All it really takes is just that one phone call. You call up your buddy who's hustling, who's doing his thing, one text message, one purchase, supporting small businesses in Toronto, supporting your friends, supporting people that are on your neighborhood. It's huge. So, massive shout out to you guys. Can't really put it into words, but I did not think that I'd still be doing this in 1 year, and here I am today, still pushing episodes. More importantly, I didn't actually think that I would have any listeners. So it's been a huge honor, and on that note, I want to get today's program started. The plan is to drop 9 episodes called Sunny and Friends Podcast, and today we have a very special episode featuring none other than myself. It won't be as long as the other episodes. It is a little bit challenging, not gonna lie, when it's just you talking into a mic. Something that being in a quarantine and being in our second lockdown right now, it can get a little mind-numbing being in your condo. Not gonna lie, I live it near Yonge and Bloor. I've been working remotely. I've been transitioning from going to my parents in the East End, to chilling with my girlfriend. That's another big silver lining of this year. Mans are in a relationship. Not that anyone cares, but and then just work and starting this new venture, Matsology as well, customized doormats, just keeping yourself busy. But I've been having a lot of thoughts, something that I go through almost every single day when I'm in my 750 square foot condo. It's a place where I work out, it's a place where I work, it's a place where I sleep, it's a place where I smoke up weed, watch TV, listen to music, you name it. And it's given me an opportunity to kind of think big picture, where I want to be in life and where I see myself and who I want to surround myself with. So on that note, I think that one of the first things I wanted to talk about is, the importance of supporting local businesses. I can't stress that enough. This second lockdown, I know, has received a tremendous amount of backlash. And I think a lot of it has to stem from the inconsistencies that have been kind of revealed and shown from the provincial government. I think that, first lockdown was what it was. It was a necessary action. The second lockdown is also a necessary action, and that's just my personal opinion. I do know and I do think that COVID-19 is real. It is lethal. It is something that you never want to be in a position where you compromise your health. But I do understand the frustration coming now from small businesses, especially people within my own network that are small business owners in Toronto, whether you're in the retail storefronts, whether you are in the hospitality industry, whether you are in the gym game, in the fitness industry. Toronto is a very expensive city. It is. And, we thrive on volume. We thrive on business. This upcoming holiday season is a big one. It was supposed to be a big one. And it's kind of eerie. I just got back from the West End, got back into my condo today, and it's still very eerie to walk around the streets of Toronto and just see how quiet shit is. I get it's cold, but it's still, it's weird. It's still weird. But, I think it's even more important now to support small businesses. And over the course of the next 9 episodes, I'm going to be giving random shout outs to businesses that, I support, that I follow, that I've bought stuff from. I think, Amazon is great. I'm not going to lie. I've been doing my fair share of purchasing, bullshit like paint, necessary actually, paint, you know what I mean? Just I don't want to disclose what I've been buying, but just things off of Amazon. It's here in 1-2 days, and it's great. You pay for the convenience, but start maybe this year channeling your focus and maybe being a little bit more conscious of where your purchases and maybe supporting local businesses. Here's a great example. Instead of buying liquor from your local LCBO, it might be a good idea to support your local restaurant that have turned into a bottle shop and buy liquor there. Whether it's a bottle of wine, whether it's a case of wine, whether it's your favorite vodka, whatever it is, do that. Be a little bit more charitable in that sense to support, your local restaurants, local bars, maybe buying sweaters or clothes or whatever from a local clothing retailer. On that note, big shout out to, my first business of Toronto that I want to support, Sergio over at Area 001 on Ossington. It's hard, it's tough, and I can sympathize. I'm not gonna lie, I'm grateful that I have a job and an opportunity for me to sit my ass at home, get paid, and work. It is a stressful job for me too, not gonna lie, just being isolated from the office, but I can't compare that with a lot of the business owners that are now at a standstill and have no income stream coming in. And so just know that, this podcast platform is available. If there's anybody out there that is a small business owner that wants their voice to be heard, feel free to reach out to me, hit me up, slide in my DMs, and we can make it happen. And on that note, guys, again, just do it. Support local. Supporting is really important. I think that's the one thing of 2020 that's been a big silver lining of mine. I've tackled on a lot of different things in my lifetime. I've tried a number of different things, from cultural organizations to business ventures to different jobs to side hustles. The biggest currency and the biggest level of, I guess, self-fulfillment you can get is when you see your friends supporting you. And, I think that's been a big thing this year, is seeing the level of support that I've been getting from people that are been outside of my circle. That maybe a year ago I didn't really consider them to be my friends, are now some people that I really consider close to me. I know who you guys are, and you guys know who you guys are, but I think reflect within your own circle and ask yourself, well, how can I be a better person? I'm not going to sit here and give you the whole, I know I've been talking about positivity and it's important. It's not just a fucking trend. It's being real. It's keeping it real. And I think that we need to be able to have those conversations and dialogues where you can pick up the phone and talk to your buddy and support his venture, support his business. I give you a classic example. I had Danny over here from Isaac. He launched his scented candle line, Isaac 1289. Having a podcast platform, a lot of times we think that, okay, you know what, if you're going to be here, you're a business owner and we're giving you, this platform to talk about it. And it's like conversational advertising, which is something new, something that I've learned about podcasting is, the ability to showcase a product or showcase a service through a conversation versus having it just simply on in a square on Instagram. There's a lot more of engagement that you can have when you talk about a product or service over a conversation. And so, I'm not going to sit here and be like, well, give me a free candle. And I had that epiphany, and I realized that the best way I can support my friends is by buying their product. And I see that often, and I've done that where I'm like, dude, I'm your friend, hook it up. But now starting Mattology, I've realized that there's a lot of time and effort that goes behind an idea. There's a lot of time and effort that goes behind, painting. It's been an interesting journey over the first week, and it's made me realize that the best compliment I can give to my friends is supporting their businesses. So I think that's something that you guys, my biggest tip to you guys, and have that realization is that don't ever ask for a discount or a friends and family discount. You can, but I think the best way you can tip them is by buying their product. You can drop $1,000 for a Gucci bag, but you might not be able to drop $20 from Etsy for a friend who's maybe doing her own line of purses here in Toronto. It's just, you just got to check yourself. It's fine that you've done it, but I think it's just more so having that realization that, we live in a society and world that needs to be a little bit more encouraging and supportive of one another. This isn't a competition. I give you another classic example. Big shout out to all the Toronto podcasters out there. You know who you are and whatnot. And it's not a competition, because it's like everyone we have our own on Instagram. We have our own little Toronto podcasters group chat where we share, episodes and we share whatnot. And it's the best thing you can do is empower one another to just do better and strive better, because this is Toronto. This is our city. And the pie is big enough for us to share at the end of the day. I want to kind of shift gears a little bit. And one of the main reasons why I wanted to do a solo podcast was to, on Saturday, me and my partner were, doing a regular, getting through our orders for Mattology, and we were kind of painting some of the mats. And, we're in my living room. I'm a young employer. And usually for those people that live in this neighborhood, you guys are well aware, every weekend there's some sort of protest. And over the last couple of months, it's really been comprised of anti-maskers. I'm sure you guys have seen it. It's one of those things where we were working, and I heard, we started hearing these sirens blaring, but car honks, trucks honking and cars honking. And we kind of ignored it in the beginning. We're like, okay, whatever. It is what it is. And and when my partner brought it up, I'm like, hey, dude, like, you know what? It's actually the anti-maskers. And then she brought up a good point. She was like, wait, there's a protest happening here. Um, and it clicked to me. I'm like, okay, oh yeah, farmers protest. So that's what I really want to talk about for the next 5-10 minutes. And this podcast was really about that. Was for those of you who've been following the news, the farmers protest has been trending. The farmers protest is a protest that is real. It hits home. It is by far right now, last time I checked, the largest protest in the history of mankind, with 250 million people participating and being involved in this protest one way or another. From Canada to the States to London to Australia, every continent you can think of, our people, Punjabi, Sikh people, are out there protesting. But this isn't just a Punjabi Sikh problem. No. This is literally, not only is this the largest protest, but this is the largest protest against the largest democracy in the world. This is about people's livelihood. And so I want to break it down, especially for my listeners out there that are not brown. Because my brown listeners, of course, I know you guys know exactly what's happening. But I want to break it down before I talk about what happened on Saturday and how that was like, seeing some of the things that have happened on Young and Bloor on Saturday. So the farmers protest. For those people who don't know, I am Punjabi. I come from a community family lineage of farmers. My grandparents were farmers. My dad's still farming. He has business in India. My great-grandparents, you can go as far back as you can go, generations and generations of farming. But, farming is the dominant it's the dominant occupation in Punjab. It is also, we know Punjab is known as being the breadbasket of India. We supply approximately 2% of the world's production of wheat. We also supply and also harvest a number of different crops as well. Besides wheat, there's barley, there's rice as well, which we call chona. Wheat is kanak, from all my Punjabi listeners out there. And so what's happening right now, and a lot of pseudo-intellects out there might be arguing and saying, well, there was this recent farm bills that were passed by the government, Narendra Modi's government, the Indian government, and these farm bills have a lot of consequences for these farmers, right? And I want to break it down for you guys how these 3 farm bills, I won't get into the details of what these each individual bills are, but at a very high level, what the current system is when it comes to farming, and also how these bills are going to be affecting that, right? In an ideal world, for example, in today's day and age, if you're a farmer, I want you guys to understand that in Punjab, the average farmer may, on average, own about 2 hectares of land. Yeah, about 86%. I think that's what let's look this up, for example. Yeah, so 86% of the landscape of Punjabi agriculture comprises of small plots of land. So, when I say small, I'm talking about maybe less than 2 hectares of land per farmer. They farm, basically whatever they make is barely to survive, So in an ideal market, in an ideal world, what would happen is the farmer would go into the market with his yield, with his crops, and let's say, Joe would like to cook up a storm and cook up dinner today. What would he do? He would buy whatever he specifically requires to cook his meal, and they would negotiate a price, and that price is known as the market price. The customer, the client would go home with whatever crop or yield he needed to cook his dinner. The farmer would go home hopeful with some sort of profit at the end of the day. But we don't live in an ideal society, and we definitely don't live in an ideal world. The current farming system in India works kind of like this. We call it, in Punjabi, we call it like a mandi system. So think of a mandi system as a sub-market. So, the farmer would go with their harvested crops. They would go to the mandi system. It's like this sub-market where they would meet with licensed brokers. In Punjabi, we call them artiyas, right? These licensed brokers and this sub-market is pretty much called an APMC, which is the Agricultural Produce Market Committee. So APMC is this sub-market consisting of licensed brokers in Punjab, aka the Mandi, where farmers would go and they would sell them their yield in bulk. Now, the brokers buy the supply of wheat and rice and maize and barley, et cetera, all this crop in bulk at market price. And then what they do is they take the crop and they go sell it to big corporations. And these big corporations would then use these crops, of course, to make your Maggi noodles, your kurkure, your all the stuff that you see on shelves in grocery stores and whatnot in India. The key here is that there's a price floor. Anybody that took economics here, you know what a price floor is. For those people that don't know, price is usually determined by the laws of supply and demand, right? You got your demand curve, and you got your demand slope, and you got your supply slope, right? As the demand for a certain product increases, the price increases. Just like as the supply for a certain product decreases, its price increases, right? And at a certain point, they meet at an equilibrium, right at the center. Now, if the market price by any chance is below the price floor, let's say the market price right now today is $15, and the price floor is $10 per pound. Let's say I don't know what the weights are, but let's say it's per pound. $15 market price, the price floor is 10, market price is 15. The farmers walk away with $15, right? But if the price were to drop, let's say below the $10 mark to 8, right? They don't go home with 8. They go home with 10. That's the minimum. It's like the minimum. I think Jag, who's one of those Toronto lawyers here, put it up. It's the minimum wage pretty much. It's the minimum floor. It's the minimum supply price, right? Then what? So what's happening with these bills exactly is you guys have to remember that this price floor is there for a reason. It's there because just like anything else we see in countries like here in Canada, it's supposed to protect farmers. It's supposed to make sure that the farmers go home not with a loss, but enough money to feed themselves, which is barely anything. And in a market that's already dominated by corporations, we're talking about pesticides, we're talking about fertilizers, we're talking about labor, that has already been increasing year over year over the course of the last decade. It's important for this price floor to be there so that these farmers are supported by the governments. Otherwise, what's going to happen is what's happening today. 3 laws were introduced. These farm laws and these bills pretty much ideally are getting rid of this Mandi system, this APMC, the Agricultural Market Produce Committee. And what they're doing essentially is allowing farmers to go directly to the big corporations. So, hey, instead of going to these licensed brokers, and you're going to go directly to the big corporations yourselves and sell. So on paper, it might look great, frankly speaking. And in the beginning, you know what, they might cut some fat checks for the sake of reputation and whatnot. But over time, what's going to happen is exploitation. These are farmers right now that are poor. These are farmers that are barely making a living. These are farmers that are relying on their crops to feed themselves, their families, and it's their livelihood. And the goal of any corporation, as we all know it, is simple. It's to make money. It's to increase their margins. And how do you increase your margins? By lowering the cost, by paying the least amount possible in terms of the cost inputs, which in this case is your crop. So what happens in this situation then is that, you can already understand and assume that when corporations start exploiting farmers, things like capital farming take into place, where corporations may or may not start taking control of a lot of these lands. I don't know if you guys are familiar with futures, but if let's say you're a big corporation, you may possibly tell farmers that, listen, before you even plant your yield or your wheat or your whatever crop, we're going to pay you $10 per pound. This is the predetermined price, and at the end of it, this is what we're going to pay you, right? And let's say cost inputs go up, and market price technically would have been a lot higher for them to break even, but now they have a locked-in contract. So I'm not going to get into the specific ways of how a farmer can get exploited, but over time, we're looking at capital farming, kind of like the landscape here in Canada, where you're not going to have small plots. You're not going to have farmers. You're not going to have that. You're going to have big corporations that are owning land. So for all my non-Punjabi friends, you're probably wondering and scratching your heads, so what? What's the big deal? Isn't this supposed to raise the standard of living? agriculture and farming is literally the backbone of my culture. Is the backbone, not just in terms of the economics and the livelihood of these people, but it is who I am as a person. It is my culture. Punjabi, the Bhangra, for those people who don't know, or screw the light bulb, pet the dog. Bhangra, the dance, is a Punjabi dance that was initially originated and started to celebrate the harvest season, right? And so you take away that, you let these bills get passed. Essentially, what's going to happen is there's going to be farmers who are already in debt go into more debt, and essentially 20 years from now, what's going to happen? You're not going to see the same Punjab. And so this is at the core and has impacted a lot of us around the world because, a lot of us have family that's at home, and this is their main form of living, farming. B, we already know how this is going to play out because it's already played out in other parts of India where there's been massive amounts of exploitation. And, there was this interesting thing that was shared by, Bummy from the Poaches podcast. Shout out to her. She did a really great episode a couple of days ago about this. I think it was Ambani. He's one of the richest men in Canada and in India. And he owns a lot of this. A lot of these massive agricultural corporations, has deep pockets. And it's because of these deep pockets that he's now reached into the pockets of Narendra Modi, who already we all know who he is. Fuck Modi. Is essentially implementing these with that motive to get into the market, to exploit these the lands, these agricultural plots, and make his money and make his bread, as if he's not sitting on billions and billions and billions of dollars in a fucking 26-floor house in Mumbai. I swear to God, it's like 6 people that are living in there with 60 servants, I think is what they were saying. But anyways, that's that. So now we are protesting, and these protests are happening everywhere in the world. But the thing that melts my heart, and the thing that kind of makes me proud to call myself Punjabi, is just the level of unity, not just around the world and within our community, but just seeing the level of unity in India. It's we got Muslims, we got people from not, Punjab, for example. I'm not going to get into the specifics on this podcast, but we know if anytime an Indian, like a group of Sikhs protest, it turns into a terrorist symbol. Okay, these guys are terrorists. That's what the Indian government usually labels any sort of peaceful protest. And it's been very peaceful. If you guys go to check out these protests, the demographics consist of mostly the elderly. Most of the people that you'll see at the front line of these protests are very old people, grandparents. And the way they're protesting is done very peacefully. It's very amazing to see the level of not just peace, but the level of organization that's being done. I had the chance, I was just aimlessly scrolling the other day on Instagram, and I came across a feed, and I was looking at the feed, and I was seeing how much unity there is at this protest, where there's people from around Punjab that are organizing food, organizing langar. They are cleaning as we go. They're getting support from businesses locally that are giving them propane and gas so they can cook food, free water, free langar, free food. There was several interactions between the Indian police and these protesters where there was violent interactions, and unfortunately the Indian government, as we know it, always tends to use force. And with that force, there was several interactions and several altercations, and it's unfortunate, but the world is watching. We live in a world and day and age today where there's social media, and we can see literally everything that's happening, right? And now apparently the Indian government is introducing cell blockers that is going to block the ability to communicate to the outside world, whether it's through, I guess, the internet, whether it's through your cell use and whatnot. But either way, it doesn't matter. They're getting, all these. I'm proud to be Canadian too, because Justin Trudeau, all three faces of all three political parties are in support of the farmers' protest. They understand the importance of this. They understand how much of an impact this will have in the long run. And any sort of peaceful protest should never be welcomed with violence. And that's the thing that worries me today. And I'm keeping very attentive and in close eye of what's happening in Indiana. I'm using this platform, so that everybody out there that isn't aware of this, just do your due diligence. I'm not an expert here, so I do apologize if I have said anything that may be wrong or may be incorrect. So I'm encouraging all you guys to go out there and do your research. But there's a lot of things that couldn't be done this year. And I remember I shared this on my platform. We can't control this this pandemic. We're all trying to follow the rules as much as possible so that we can have a safe outcome. But, what we can do when it comes to some of the social injustices that took place this year is voice our concern, voice our opposition to this. You don't have to be Punjabi. You don't have to be Sikh to be concerned about this. I live at Young and Bloor, and I see every weekend some sort of protest. A couple months ago, mid-October, there was something against Nigeria, police brutality. Belarus is a big one. Yemen is a big one. I look at myself, and I think we need to really change the perspective of how we view ourselves. That we're global citizens, and I think we owe it to ourselves to be a little bit more aware of what's going on in the world. I attended, for example, the Black Lives Matter protest that happened in Toronto during the beginning of the year, and it's not because I felt like I had to, where I'm here in Toronto, I'm going to go, da da da. I genuinely it was a cause, and it still is a cause that is something that I felt, that I felt that I needed to be a part of, that I needed to support, right? And that's where, like, I think it's important that as we navigate through it day to day, we do have a social responsibility, I think. And you know what? By all means, you can tell me to fuck off and be like, I'm going to mind my own business. By all means, but I'm just sharing what I feel. It's just to be a little bit more conscious of where we are in the world and how the world is, because the world is moving at a really fast pace, and it's becoming a little too much for our minds to handle. Because now I think that, one interesting observation I had was, information overload. There's literally so much information out there. Not only just Twitter and, at the convenience of our fingertips, but also, like, if you think about it, there's a lot of information out there that's available through social media. A lot of fake news, a lot of news related to things like, things that are like on 6 buttons that are just headlines. It's literally just 7 words. So-and-so did this, so-and-so did that, and bam, Tory Lanez shot Megan Thee Stallion in the foot, bam, and you try to torch this guy literally live on social media. And so it's a viral way of looking at news, and I think we need to kind of check ourselves and be a little bit more aware of the type of news and information we process and how we process it, and do just a little bit more research. But anyways, farmers protest, show your support, be aware, spread the word. If you have a platform, use it. If anybody's out there that would like to, I'm not an expert on this subject matter, so I do apologize if I did say anything wrong, but I do want to make sure that everyone out there is aware that this is an open line. This platform is available to anybody out there that has a strong opinion that they'd like to share, and my doors are always welcome. So hit me up. And other than that, guys, 2020 has... I can't believe that we're wrapping up this year, because, if you go back to my podcast, I think it was like episode 4 or 5. This time last year, we were wrapping up 2019, and we were kind of, me and Suppprt and a couple of my guests when I started the year, Jag, Franco and whatnot. We talked about starting 2020 with a bang, starting this new decade. It's a new decade, and the expectation of us being a new version of ourselves. Even though the year didn't really go according to how I envisioned at that time, for me personally, this has been the best year. No offense to anybody out there that struggled. No offense to anybody out there that's hurting right now. But just me personally, I think there's been so many silver linings, and I hope there's been a lot of silver linings in your life. We're in chaos and in disaster, and when things aren't really going your way, you got to find a way to adapt. You got to find a way to commit yourself to get through it and be the best version of yourself. And that just doesn't start, there's no light switch. It just starts with those little baby steps. It starts with getting up, those little things, whether it's, getting up earlier, whether it's maybe, going for a run, whether maybe it's doing a 20-minute workout, maybe it's reading 2 pages of a book. It's a daily thing. And I think you got to remind yourselves to be a little bit more compassionate with yourselves. And so going back to me, there's been a lot of silver linings with so many different things and a lot of personal things as well. It's been an incredible year, and it's been a year full of, as much as I want to say that this year went by and flew by, a lot happened in this year. A lot has happened this year, not just in the form of the pandemic, but like the way the NBA season went, the way the sports world reacted to this and adapted to the pandemic. The presidential elections, which was that just happened, with Trump out of the office finally. Still, I swear to God, the guy is still on Twitter right now going on rants saying that the election is rigged, and that's a completely different topic. And I'm hoping to discuss that in a future episode with one of you guys. You know who you are. How Trump would react and behave in a post-president world, him not being president anymore. But just the ability for us to adapt as a society has been great. It's unfortunate. I was really, really, really impressed with the way gyms and restaurants really handled and adapted to this pandemic, and some of the regulations, or some of the things that they kind of did to make sure that their environments were were friendly, in terms of making sure the health was paramount of their customers, of their clients. And now for them to kind of be put up there on the stake, I think it was really unfair. I hope this lockdown doesn't get extended any further than it already has. The good news today is that apparently the vaccine was, the first vaccine was actually tested with someone in the UK. I'm sorry, I apologize. I didn't really look at I just saw the heading on Twitter. But it looks like the end is near somewhat. The vaccine is available, but the question now is what happens if you decide not to take a vaccine? Like, if I decide to not take the vaccine, am I allowed to go into an establishment? Can I go grocery shopping? Or is this going to be like that movie Songbird, where you have to have like a Canada Health Pass? So if you have it, you're allowed to go anywhere you want, like a VIP. But if you don't, then there's certain restrictions in place. Anyways, I'm not a conspiracy theorist. I don't really want to get into that right now. Wanted to keep this short and sweet. But, I hope you guys find your silver linings. I'll be reflecting on the year 2020 with my guests that are coming on the podcast over the course of the next couple of weeks. Just talking, bullshitting, chilling out, smoking up, drinking, having a good time, catching up virtually and whatnot. And we'll see where it goes. And I think that, guys, you don't really need to, I'm not really here to preach and tell you that you need to be the best version of yourself, et cetera, et cetera. You figure your shit out. We're all adults. I'm going to figure my shit out. I want to end the year strong. I want to make sure that we don't need to wait until January to start our resolutions. Start thinking about them now. End the year on a strong note so that you can start the year on an even better note. So on that note, guys, hope you guys enjoyed this podcast. It was short and sweet. I will be dropping another episode in 2 days with my good friend John, which was recorded a couple of days ago. I didn't get the chance to edit it yet, but I will be dropping that in a couple of days. And then every 2 days, expect a new episode. So stay tuned. Make sure to subscribe to the episode. Make sure to follow the account on Instagram. But most importantly, guys, make sure to support local. Make sure to shop local. Holiday shopping season is here. It's going to be a little different. Malls are not going to be able to go into some of the malls and whatnot. And I know curbside pickup is available, but try to do a little bit of research and support your neighborhood businesses. On that note, peace out.